Hey there, Aries. This is the start of your 2-week forecast, taking you from the 27th of April, the new moon in Taurus, right the way through to the 12th of May with the full moon in Scorpio. Now, every 2 weeks, I'll look at the planetary weather coming up to see how it's likely to affect you. And I don't know if you're somebody with the sun in Aries or the ascendant in Aries, but hopefully this should give you some reassurance and some ideas on how you might best manage these energies. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson. Feel Good Astrology. I guess this channel is about how to give you a sense of possibilities. You know, often astrology can be quite predictive and quite fatalistic, you know, and saying, oh, the moon is in Scorpio, therefore this is definitely going to happen. And I prefer to use astrology in such a way that helps to enhance your life. So hopefully you'll find it useful. If you have been here before and you come back, then welcome back. I really appreciate your support. Anyway, let's bring up the charts so that I can help ease you through this period. So we're going from new moon to full moon. And the first thing that occurs to me, you know, this is a waxing moon forecast. So the waxing moon forecast is all about the moon growing. I mean, you know, obviously the moon's not growing. The moon is the same size throughout. But, you know, with this, as we start this forecast, the new moon is a dark moon. You know, it is completely unilluminated. What this means to me is we are blind. You know, we are in a deeply intuitive phase. It's a very internalized process. It's a time when we don't have all the answers readily available and we have to tune right into ourselves. So you'll see by the end of this process, we're at the full moon stage and it's fully illuminated. What this means to me is this is a very externalized thing where we can absolutely see what's around us, see all the opportunities. In fact, you know, this is kind of like a clean slate. The new moon really shows us where we've got like a blank canvas. We've let go of a lot of things and we're free to sow some new seeds and plant seeds of desire, plant things in the place into our life that we would like to bring forwards into our world and into our existence. And the full moon really shows where things have manifested. Now, I'm not saying if you sow a seed at the time of the new moon that 2 weeks later it will be fully manifested. I don't think it works like that. But around the time of the full moon, I really think that we get the true cost of where our thoughts and energies have taken us. So this is, you know, the waxing moon phase, which is a growth period. We can be sowing things that could be manifesting and feeling great around the time of the full moon, or if we're kind of swimming in negative thoughts and we're not really being mindful of how we're using our energy, we could have some quite chaotic things. And I think around the time of the full moon, it really gives you a clue as to how you're doing. You know, are you really creating the life the way you want it to be? I.e., it feels exciting around the time of the full moon. Yes, there's lots coming in. Might be a bit overwhelming, but you're buzzing. Or does it feel terrible? Does it feel like, really overwhelming, emotionally overwhelming? I think at those times it shows that at some point in this journey, you've made some decisions that aren't in alignment with who you are. So I really see that this 2-week period is about you getting back into alignment and to growing the energies that you really want to see come up into your world. And the first part of this, coming up to the first quarter, it's mainly in the dark, which means we are absolutely tuning in. We are needing to use our full intuition, a process of self-inquiry, journaling, meditation. We are not so outward. You know, we are a lot more internalized. We're a lot more at home. And as such, I think we need to take it easy. We need to be really gentle with ourselves because we are our own tool. We are the person that we need to be listening to. So we need to really make sure we are kept in top condition. As we come into this second part of the forecast period, from the 4th of May, we're a lot more externalized. Clues and information are coming at us or towards us. And so we need to be able to receive information and be open to it, and then to be able to process it. So this is much easier, I think. And it's a lot faster. You know, things start to speed up as we go through this 2-week process. And as such, I think it's also important just to quickly see how this feeds into an actual diary. I find it quite helpful to see how it can be laid out. You know, it looks, I'm able to sort of visualize it in my mind's eye. So, you know, the new moon in Taurus starts on the 27th of April on a Sunday. The midpoint, halfway through from dark to light, that is on the 4th of May. And that really represents a choice point where we're needing to step it up a bit. And then the full moon in Scorpio, again, this is based on British times. I'm in the UK time zone. It appears to be happening on like in the early hours of Monday, but you might find if you're in North America or Hawaii, for instance, that this is actually happening on the 11th. So just, you might need to check your own times. And I recommend timeanddate.com is a great place. If you go to the sun and moon tab, I think it's called, and then go to the moon cycles or moon phases, you'll see the actual time of the new moon and the full moon in your own unique time zone. So please feel free to use that. In between these two moons, and I think these are like emotional bookends at, at the ends of each of these this period of time. The new moon is pretty involved. You've got all the energy of new potential and this blank slate and this feeling of, right, I'm ready to start again. And at the same time, there is an ongoing opposition between Pluto and Mars. It's been going on. It's been coming in since the end of October. We had an exact opposition between the Pluto and Mars on the 3rd of November, then another exact one on the 3rd of January. And then we've got the last one going exact on the 27th of April. So this is the last one. After this point, thank goodness, Pluto and Mars are coming out of their opposition. However, even by the time of the full moon in Scorpio, they are still technically in opposition, but it's getting easier and easier and easier. So it's all starting to release and unravel, I think, from the new moon in Taurus. However, right at the end of this forecast period, the full moon itself is really quite spicy. The full moon is in opposition to the sun, which it always is, but it's in opposition to the sun in a conjunction with Uranus. Now, Uranus really makes things unpredictable. And the full moon, at the best of times, is a time of emotional, like when we're highly emotional, highly charged, highly triggerable. And so I think this particular full moon is going to be quite interesting. It has the possibility of it going completely out of control. And it just so happens that, we've got the full moon in Scorpio, the moon and the sun in fixed signs, and also Pluto and Mars are also in fixed signs still. So it's like we have these two oppositions in what looks like a grand cross. It's actually not in a cross, but it is still very, very fixed, and it's creating a really strong energy. And so what I'm going to do over the next short while is go through three different charts. Three different charts for the new moon in Taurus, the switch point midway through, and then the full moon in Scorpio. But like I said, these two big moons are like bookends, and in between, I think this is a time when we need to be quite soft with ourselves. I don't think we need to quest. I think we need to observe what's going on. I've looked at each of the signs from different perspectives. For instance, I record a relationship and connection forecast for each sign of the zodiac, and also a career and ambition forecast for each sign of the zodiac. And I've already recorded these. And, I can tell you, when I've deep dived into each of these, I really see that, in between these two moons, it feels like we're in this moment of deep change. It feels like we're formulating a new plan, but we're still internalizing things. So it's with that energy that I share this information with you. So in this 2-week period, the first one is really quite, I've only included the most important aspects as I see them. So the first thing is Venus is going into Aries, having been in Pisces for quite a while. And Venus is going into Aries on Wednesday, the 30th of April. Now, Venus isn't very strong in the sign of Aries. However, she's been in Pisces, where she's exalted, but she's a little bit of a people pleaser, a little bit magical, and also not necessarily very clear. And so Venus coming into Aries, I think, is marking a time when we're coming back into emotional clarity and clarity in terms of our relationships. We're ready to take action a little bit more with the people we're relating to. And I think this is a good thing. I think the spring in particular with Venus and Mercury retrograde has marked a time when a lot of us have been in a state of confusion. It's given us a lot of time to really review how we feel in life and what's working, what's not working. However, I really see see that Venus moving into Aries on the 30th of April as being a time when we're ready to move forwards a little bit. And, Venus is also coming into a conjunction with Neptune on Friday, the 2nd of May. Now, this is also really interesting to me because Venus has already made 2 conjunctions with Neptune this year. That's not normal. We normally have 1 conjunction each year. And for the last 13 years or so, Venus has made her conjunctions with Neptune in the sign of Pisces, which is very much like a fairy godmother kiss, or, someone waving a magic wand. It's very magical. It's full of promise. It's full of imagination, and like really sort of like pulling your highest dreams together and believing in rainbow colored unicorns. It's all sort of like magical and very much like a little 5-year-old girl's birthday party, but not necessarily about to take action. Now, Venus coming into a conjunction with Neptune on Friday the 2nd is going to be the first one that's occurring in the sign of Aries. So what I really think that this is a moment for us to wish big, but start to form a plan to make our wishes come true. Venus and Neptune is really about feeling the flow and creativity at a much higher level and being able to integrate it into our bodies. So I really think we can, anything we want to bring into a clear manifestation, anywhere we want to feel elevated and ethereal and celestial and feel really, really great that our life is really turning out in the way we want it to. Now we can start to build it as part of a plan. This Venus conjunct Neptune in Aries is asking us to take action. And if you're ready to take action, I think the necessary steps will all start to fall into place, in particular after the 4th of May. So I really think the 2nd of May is a time to hold the potential energy of this particular conjunction. I think it's exciting. Now, in week 2, there's some real building block energies. In particular, on the 5th of May, Mercury in an exact sextile with Jupiter is really showing that we can be a lot more friendly, a lot more collaborative. We can talk plainly and a lot. We can share a lot together. And so I think this is a really helpful energy, especially as we're coming into the more lightened times of the moon. The moon appears to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger in the night sky. We are more consciously aware of great things, great helpful collaborative things in our life. So friendships are really, really important. And then on the 6th of May, Venus is in a sextile to Pluto. Now this could be great if you're in a sexual relationship, a loving relationship as well. Things could get really deep and your trust in each other can really deepen. But however you choose to use this energy, I think the ability to trust in the process and trust each other and go deeper into our collaborative lives, I think this is working beautifully. Now, on the next day, Mercury makes an exact conjunction with Chiron, and this could be quite ouchy if you're triggered and if you don't have great relationships with people, for sure. If there's no outlet for this could be quite difficult. But Mercury in a conjunction with Chiron in the sign of Aries is really showing this moment where we can be transparent, we can articulate what we've been feeling. And I think where our feelings really come up in such a way that we know what's going on. Like often, I think our hurts, particularly psychological wounding, I think it can be, we can separate it from ourselves. We talk about, when this happened to me, and it's almost like a badge of honor. And the moment we label it, we see it slightly outside of ourselves, like it's a thing. And when it's slightly outside of ourselves, it's really difficult to process things, So I really think with this Mercury conjunct Chiron energy, we are able to feel what's going on, to be able to talk about it, and for the potential of it to be processed. So if you add these 3 together, and remember, these are the days when these energies are exact. That's not to say to be fair, they're already in place pretty much throughout this whole 2-week period. But this is the fulcrum point of this. This is when they're really, really coming into play. So I think the 5th to the 7th of May in particular, it marks a time when we can come together as friends. We can feel things much more passionately and come into a deeper level of trust and truth, and also open up to the things we're vulnerable about. So this could represent a time of great change within relationships. Now, coming up to the 10th of May, Mercury moves into Taurus. And then I think the way we communicate is starting to get a lot more practical. And I think that's helpful, so we take some of the fire out of some of the communications that are going on. And maybe in the news, things won't be so inflammatory. Although who knows, I suspect they will. But Mercury into Taurus is really, I think we will be communicating from a place of practicality, with provable evidence, and in such a way where we're trying to work together rather than trying to piss each other off, which I think is a good thing. So that's how I think these 2 weeks, these are the things that really stand out. But before I go any further, and I will bring up the 3 charts I've selected in just a moment. But before I do that, I want to just say a big thank you to everybody that supports this channel. I really, really admire you, and I'm really glad that you're in my life. Thank you so much for this. People support the channel through buying me a coffee, or also, I've got a membership, Feel Good Astrology Community, where there are extra readings. I'll tell you about it a little bit at the end, but all the details are below in the description field. So if that sounds like something that might be interesting to you, to support the channel, to get extra readings, to get discounts and things like that, and also the chance to join us, there's a growing, lovely sort of like team feeling there, then please do consider that. But anyway, let's have a look at these charts now. So from your perspective then, Aries, and these are the 3 charts I'm using: the new moon in Taurus chart, the first quarter moon phase chart, and the full moon in Scorpio. So let's just go back. What you'll see is during this time, we start off here with this new moon happening in your 2nd house. And this is really sort of opening up the ideas of receivership. I think, the 2nd house is very much about money, very much about how open you are to receiving, but it's also about your self-esteem. That's a really, really key theme. Now, this new moon is in a square to Pluto and Mars. And so however this Pluto and Mars opposition has been occurring to you over the last 6 months will really determine how this new moon comes about. So for instance, here, Pluto is very much in this place of influencing, the 11th house, I think, is a place where we collaborate with people, where we can gain a lot of influence through our social connections, and also where we feel that we can maybe have a part to play in a global vision. I really feel that the 11th house can show our wishes. A lot of people talk about it as being a place of hopes and dreams, and I really do think of it as a place of co-creation, like the law of attraction house. I really think it is. Now, Pluto coming into this, I think wherever Pluto goes, it can bring fear into your lives, and it can also show the control mechanisms you'll go to avoid feeling that fear. It's obviously very uncomfortable. And if you've been born with Pluto in the 11th house, like I have, you'll understand actually the pain that can come up from not fitting in. And this is one of the difficulties. I think, Pluto can bring up the fear of being bullied, the fear of being excluded, the fear of really not being part of things. And yet Pluto in this area can also show where you have a lot of influence and a lot of sway, because obviously Pluto is a very it also represents the power. So when you're not afraid of how you fit in, with Pluto coming through this part of your chart, it really shows how you can come into influence, how you can come into power, and how you feel like you have a bit more control. Now, I should say, the moment you start to work with Pluto from a position of control, it often goes bad, because no one's in control. Pluto feels he has the final say. And then Mars down here is really showing your ability to work from your own sense of joy and passion. I really like this area of the chart because it really shows where we feel naturally creative and where we're naturally kind of dancing with the rhythm of life, and if you feel like you're ready to birth something, and obviously this is a house of children as well, so it is like literally about real birthing, but where you want to birth the project or where you feel inspired, you start to move forwards. Now, Mars coming into the sign of, Mars is pretty much at the place he was at before he went retrograde, and got into this nasty old stinky opposition with Pluto. And Mars was coming into this area, filling you with lots of inspiration and a lot of motivation to move forwards and to take action about things that you really wanted to bring in, and also to take action on things that lift you up, that make you feel freer and more spontaneous. I mean, this is a place where actually we're meant to be quite innocent and upbeat, and to feel really kind of cool with ourselves. And what I really get from this, Aries, is that this opposition has uncharacteristically, because I mean, Mars is the ruler of Aries, and so I mean, this is really, really big for you. But I mean, Aries, you're not known for being you're not known for being compromising. You're known actually for really holding your energy quite well in the face of great tension. However, in recent times, if you felt a little bit embarrassed or a little bit under the control of people and needing to face the pain or the fear of separation, this may well have stopped you in your tracks. Well, I'm here to share with you that from today, from the day of the new moon in Taurus, that things are going to ease off and you're going to come back into this feeling of greater power and greater drive and motivation to start birthing those things that you've been dreaming about, these things that you've really wanted to bring about. And you might have to do it on your own. This is the thing. If you've been wanting to create things and been waiting for people to get involved, which again is not really an Aries thing, you're normally really happy to go ahead and do things in your own way, in your own time, and at your own speed and with your own resources and this, that, and the other. I mean, you're quite happy to lead quite an independent path. However, anywhere where you felt caught into some kind of collaboration with somebody and you might have to fit in with their rules, it has stopped you in your tracks. So this is a time, I think, when you're reclaiming yourself. And isn't that a great thing? You're standing back in your power. Now, this new moon is here, I think, to shake up anywhere where you've maybe lost a bit of your self-esteem along the way, where you felt a little bit dented, a little bit beaten up. And maybe you've not advocated for yourself so strongly. Sometimes, we need a bit of a fight to really advocate for ourselves. But, with a normal cut and thrust of life, you might have been knocked here a little bit and knocked there a little bit and not paid too much attention to it. So this particular new moon, I think you're coming back into your body again a lot more and realizing that anywhere where you've been knocked a bit, it's time to now believe in yourself. It's time to build in the value of you, to remember how much you're worth, to really value yourself. So this is self-esteem stuff I'm talking about, and also to receive help. Characteristically, the fear here is when you receive help, you might lose control. This is a Pluto fear. But what would it be like if you could actually receive from anyone and feel strong enough to be able to say, thank you for this. Actually, this isn't for me right now. So I think you're coming into your true strength and feeling up to it, like feeling strong enough to be able to manage what's coming your way and what you need to hold off. So this, I think, is going to be helpful. Now, as the week or these 2 weeks go on, Venus is coming into your own sign. Now, Neptune recently came across, and obviously I've spoken about already about Venus in a conjunction to Neptune in your first house. I really can't stress this enough for you as to how important this is, especially in these early degrees of Aries. I mean, this really could be transforming your life in a big way. So whatever big goals you've had recently, like this could be the time when you really start to work on them. And by big goals, I'm not talking about something where you're thinking about being in 5 years' time or something like that. I'm talking about your biggest heart-based goals that are almost so big you've kind of shelved them a little bit and thought, it's probably not going to happen. Why? This is strong. A reason why this is strong, these early degrees in Aries, like very soon Saturn's going to come over, and when Saturn comes over, you're going to start taking yourself a lot more seriously. Saturn and Neptune, I think, together is going to show you where you can really lead in an idealistic and also compassionate way. This is going to bring a new edge to you, but a renewed strength that you may well have felt a little bit has been missing for a bit as Saturn has been going through the sign of Pisces, but that's about to come to an end. And in particular, in the end of February of 2026, Saturn and Neptune are going to be right here, right at this birthing point of Aries. And whatever new ideas you wanted to bring in, they're going to start to come in. So I really see that what you choose to do right now is going to have such an impact around February of next year, which you might think, why do I bother? I'm really just happy in a moment. And sure, be happy in a moment, but start believing in your bigger goals, because they can start to manifest. There are some really strong energies that are coming in to really help you know end and to bring a very transformed new version of you. Now, that's not all, so we've got Venus coming in, but we've already got Mercury coming through your first house. Now, when Mercury comes through your first house, you tend to be a lot more forthright in your communication, which is great. And leading up to the 7th, and I've already mentioned this, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, these are days when there's a lot of these building block energies exactly happening to increase the level of communication between you and others, and to help you feel a lot more trust and a lot more transparency. But this could be quite a moment of defense. If you're feeling defensive, if you're feeling that something hasn't quite passed, something that's a little bit painful that's coming up, this could be a little bit ouchy for you. This could be like one of those times where you almost don't want to look at yourself. But what I really recommend that you might choose to do is to consider really consider where you're going. At this time, from the first quarter moon phase in the week of starting the 4th of May, this is a really sensitive time, and a time when there's a lot of support, and it's going to help you to unravel some of these tensions here. So Jupiter, and this again, this goes back to social things and your reaction to things within your community. So Jupiter has been going through your 3rd house for quite some time, and he's going to be there for at least another month and a half, and then he's going to go into the sign of Cancer. But as we go through this 2-week period, Jupiter is coming into this square with the North Node, with Saturn. This is ongoing, a square to Neptune and a square to Venus. And so the new feelings of you coming back into yourself, you starting to charm people a little bit, Venus coming into the 1st, you starting to feel like you're recreating your identity, it's met with a little bit of tension from how that might be received in the local community. So again, this idea of you serving yourself and following your joy, and the fear of not being accepted. Again, this is such an interesting time, because Aries don't seem to suffer from this particularly. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is there is a real strong impulse at the moment to be yourself and to develop yourself and to really kind of take yourself not just up to the next level, but up about 3 or 4 levels. It really feels like you've got a much bigger vision for yourself than you've had in a really, really long time. And at the same time, there's a slight fear of how people might react to that, because you're not just kind of recreating yourself and like going for a restyle with a stylist, and then you're coming out the same day as a different person. You're about to evolve beyond a few different ideas of yourself. I mean, this is a time of real great change, and I'm sure you can feel it, Aries. So that's, I guess, what I really want you to be aware of in this next 2 weeks. You are in this time of great change and rewriting your own story. Now, as we come to the time of the full moon in Scorpio, this is likely to bring up some really deep emotions associated with, again, the judgments of other people, but in particular, the expectations that other people have had on you that you felt under pressure with. So, for instance, within your close relationships, like partners, also family traditions, whatever people have had as the listening for who you are, like the reputation you might have with your family and the closest friends, it seems around the time of the full moon, you're a lot more sensitive to it and can be a lot more triggered by it. Trust me, this house here, this 8th house, this area can really cause a lot of upset. It's a place where we can get guilted, shamed, blamed, where we might also feel resentment. One thing to recognize is you might also be feeling like you've got expectations on other people and they're not fulfilling. So it really is a quagmire of judgment. So leading up to this time, the full moon in Scorpio, if you're feeling particularly charged and you're also feeling that the people around you aren't very receptive and actually they're really stubborn, I would probably kind of stay away from any deeper meaningfuls or anything that you're trying to resolve. I would actually let it pass. This is a very sort of interactive 2-week period where there's a lot coming up, and I think you are stirred into a new vision of yourself. And I just think around the 12th, it might just be too soon to really clue in the closest people to you. I don't think they're really ready to hear the enormity of the person you're becoming. So maybe keep it to yourself for a little bit and allow it to be felt and experienced throughout your whole body. And then soon, I think people will just start to understand it because they'll feel it coming off you. So anyway, there's some of my thoughts for you over this next 2-week period, how you might manage it. And again, I really do think it's about a new identity brewing. Now, if you want to know more about this period from the perspective of romance, like relationships and connections, and also from the perspective of your career and ambition, then you might also be interested to hear about my membership. So I host my membership on school.com. That's SKOLL.com/Feel Good Astrology. Every 2 weeks at the time of the new moon and the full moon, I release the relationship and connections forecast for each sign and also the career and ambition forecast for each sign. So effectively, you get 4 of these a month, every new moon and every full moon. There are 2 extra additional forecasts. Some people just join to get those forecasts and completely understand that. But if you are also somebody who wants to maybe hang out and to continue learning and to have conversations about what you love, like astrology, then I also do a community hangout each month. I hosted one a few days ago. And we were looking at the intrinsic patterns between our charts and the biggest events in our life, like when we've given birth, when we've met our partners, when we've married people, when we started our dream job, or when we've had an accident or something like that. So we've looked at life-changing moments and how they absolutely fit into our birth chart. So there is that possibility if this kind of energy feels like something for you. Also, if you have been considering getting a consultation, I offer discounts for members. So if you want to give it a go, there's a free trial for the first week. And, if you want to join us fully and receive the actual discounts, then there is a fee of $22 a month. So if this sounds like something that might suit you to get these extra heads up forecasts and also all the other benefits, then please do just go to the link below in the description fields, and I'll catch up with you real soon. But anyway, loads and loads of love to you. Have a great time, Aries, and speak to you real soon. Bye for now.